How are you? Good? Thank you for coming, and thank you very much for this opportunity, Mr. Dasher. I'm really honored to be here for the second time, actually. So I'm going to talk about who I am and who we are. I'm going to talk about what DeNA's business looks like and how it has been pivoting its business, and then how it is trying to expand its businesses in the US and in the Western market. So Mr. Dasher kindly I'll give you a little bit of introduction of myself. So I was born in Kyoto, and I was raised in an island called Shikoku in Japan. So I, like Mr. Dasher mentioned, I majored in archaeology, thinking that college life is the only time that you can work hard on something that don't make money. Actually, I was not smart enough to think in that way. So I really wanted to be an archaeologist. I tried to be one. But I changed my mind in my senior year, and I wanted to be in business. So I had no idea what business was like. I didn't know any difference between profit and revenue. So the choice I made was I joined the bank. Because in Japan, as some of you might know, these kind of large companies tend to have really good education system. So my first year in bank was when I got most of business education being paid. So that was a great time for me. So after 1.5 years in bank, the name of DeNA, the company of DeNA pops up in front of me as a great opportunity. I met Namba-san, who is the founder of the company, and I joined DeNA in 2000. So DeNA was founded in 1999, and I joined in DeNA in 2000. So it's been more than a decade. It's been a great ride. So I'm going to talk about what it looks like for me. So I'm going to talk a little bit about company overview. So we have now 15 offices worldwide. And in total, we have around 2,100 full-time employees globally. And we make about $2 billion per year. And in last year, so last fiscal year, not this ending fiscal year because it's a quiet period, so I'm not supposed to talk about any financial for fiscal year 2013. But in 2013, and last year we made around 800 million as operating profit last fiscal year. So this is the overview of DeNA's brand portfolio, of course, business portfolio. So I'm going to talk about the history in later slide, but you can see how we have diverse business portfolio for the company with 2,000 people. So we started as e-commerce company. That's what I thought I signed up for. And the e-commerce company on the top left is still a stably growing good business with about 50 million revenue per quarter. So we are a public company, so you can find these details of numbers on the website. And then on the right, this service called the mobile game and social games are the main business we have. So we are currently making over 80% of our revenue from this social gaming business. This is huge. I think we are making 400 million per quarter from this business, mainly still in Japan. So we make 80% of that, 80 to 90% still from Japanese market. So we are trying to make it more global. And just below that is the interest businesses we have. So 2 years ago, we acquired a pro baseball team called Yokohama Bay Stores. It is not uncommon in Japan for the consumer product company to own pro baseball team. Actually, most of the baseball team are sponsored by these companies. So, hold on. Oops. Yeah, so the biggest team, Giants, is owned by a media company. And we bought this baseball team from TV network. So why it made sense for us, it was because, so for this mobile game business, since it was really huge, and we were spending around 200 million per year on advertisement. So that was, at that time, more than what Toyota was spending and even Coca-Cola was spending. So when you were in Japan back in 2012, you were supposed to watch our TV commercial 10 times a day if you live a normal life. So we were spending a lot of money on TV advertisement. And Yokohama Bay Stars was losing 20 million per year. But owning baseball gives you a tremendous exposure. So, the team is now called DeNA Bay Stars. So that helped us a lot on branding, brand recognition, and also brand image. So, and it costed around 100 million. So we bought baseball team for 100 million, and that was kind of losing 20 million per year. But we could drastically cut the spending on TV ads, so that economically makes sense. Except that the team is not doing well yet. So it was cheap because that team was doing horrible at the bottom. And last season, we are second from the bottom. So we are definitely better. And we hired a famous head coach, and we, restructured the team. So I'm really expecting this team to be great this year. So far, it's not. I'm still hopeful. And we also own track and field team. That helped us brand recognition too. So that's sports. And we also have travel agencies through an acquisition. And I'm going to talk about the other business later, but we have really, fantastic culture of entrepreneurship where a lot of different employees with different background are encouraged to launch new services. So these other businesses like entertainment and education, these are coming through this, new service approach that we encourage employees to build new services. So one thing related to this I wanted to add is that so DeNA actually now is recognized in Japan as one of the companies that you would go after graduating grade school, like Tokyo University or Kyoto University, which is like Stanford or Harvard, because unfortunately the entrepreneurship scene, startup scene is not as active as it is here in Silicon Valley. So it's really risky choice for great students, young entrepreneurs, to start up businesses by themselves. But DeNA, even though it is recognized as gaming company, so a lot of people who wanted to start something new and something entrepreneurial, they come to join us. So that's how DeNA is recognized, and that's why we are getting great people in these new this new startup, new services, which I will mention later. So this is how we have grown. We were founded in 1999, and I joined right around here when we had around 20 people. And I actually left Tokyo headquarters around here when we had about 150 people. So that growth was really tremendous and fast. That just kept me excited. So I had no kind of bored. I didn't experience any time that was boring for me. And so this is how we. I'm gonna pause here a little bit and talk about the history of DeNA's business, pivoting several times. So when I joined DeNA, it was Namba-san, founder, was trying to replicate the business of eBay in Japan in 1999. That was something she was really excited about. By the time I joined, the competition was really already tough. So the first presentation slide I looked at in the first meeting after I joined the company was saying Yahoo Auction, which was, by the way, the largest competitor. Yahoo Auction was like an elephant, and we are like ant. And I didn't know about that. And then so the slide goes, so what should we do next? So that was the first meeting I joined. So by the time I joined, DeNA was really trying to transform itself into something else to survive. That time, 2000, it was right after what was called internet bubble just got busted. So it was kind of hard to raise funds. So we were seeing a lot of other companies around us just going bankrupt. So we were really survival mode. So in 2000, we shifted our business more to online shopping. So from C2C auction service to B2C online shopping. It was close to Amazon, I would say. And I was in charge of ad sales plus these small stores, small merchants who wanted to sell stuff on the internet. So I was head of sales department there and advertisement. So luckily we went profitable there, but there was a huge competitors still, like Amazon, and Rakuten, and we were just very profitable, but we didn't have any service that was the largest in the market. So in 2004. We actually moved. We started to look at mobile internet. That was way before smartphone, of course, and that was even before NTT Docomo. That was the largest carrier started flat rate plan for internet, mobile internet. So back in that time, the mobile phone was just for talking, not for internet. But we started to see a lot of dating sites and some fishy websites started to, be launched in the mobile internet. No one was really seriously looking at that, but we decided to make a bold move to make a big investment in mobile internet. So we started mobile auction from scratch. We didn't use anything at all from our old auction service. And that service went real well. In like 3 months, we became the largest mobile website in the world, in Japan at least, so which means in the world at that time. So that made us go public in 2005, right? And then we raised the extra fund and we started mobile ad business. That became largest too, so we were the largest ad network on mobile. It was just like AdMob, if you know, that was acquired by Google. And then using that traffic in 2006, we started mobile social networking site called Mobage. And Mobage actually is an abbreviation of mobile game in Japanese. So we started that. We promoted that website to the heaviest user of a mobile auction. So in the very first day, we were really confident that that service went really successful. So that mobile social networking site was virtual. So we made money through selling avatars, and we gave free casual games on top of it. So people, didn't have options to find free casual games at that time because, all the games on the mobile internet was made by these traditional gaming company who could never give it away. So we started to provide these free games and attracted traffic and sent them into social networking site. Facebook wasn't in Japan back then, and there was no big, strong social networking site in the mobile. So that business went really, really well. Everybody thought that it was a really Korean business model because no one was familiar with avatar business, but that went really well from the first day. We weren't sure why people would spend a lot of money on buying these virtual clothes, a virtual hat. We were making like 200 million per year from that business. So when that business stopped growing, we didn't know why either. That was that size of a business, so that business stopped growing. So by that time, we were to some extent famous as an internet company. So we freaked out. We did a lot of things to boost revenue for Avatar. We made it 3D, and we hired a lot of celebrities to sell these avatars. But that business didn't go up, even though we were profitable. So we had some peace of mind. So we kept investing in new things. In 2009, at the end of 2008, so end of 2008 to 2009, we started to develop social games by ourselves. Our first big hit game actually started to make $1 million per day. So that was made by someone who joined DeNA. Just I explained, he graduated from Tokyo University, and he was not gamer at all. He was not even engineer, but he came to DeNA, and he was asked to create some great social game. He actually learned how to write code in the company, and then by himself, he made the first social game that started to make hundreds of millions a year. So from then, that single game made more money than the whole business we had, right before then. So we started to shift our resources into social gaming, social mobile gaming in DeNA. So that was when we had really a rapid growth, and then we, reached to the point where we started to make billions of revenue. So now we make 2 billion, mainly, like I said, out of social games, mobile games. I actually, in 2006, I started to be in Korea and then moved to China to replicate whatever success we had in Japan in these Asian countries. So I didn't really experience all these, the last kind of the stretch of the growth, but I often went back to the office, and every time I went back to the office, the employees kept doubling, So that was amazing experience. So for those who are curious about what the first big success of a mobile social networking that we had called Mobage. So I'm going to quickly talk about this business, because this business is still very relevant to our business, and this is exactly what we're trying to do here in the US too. So basically, the Mobage is the platform on which we have a lot of freemium mobile social games. By freemium, I mean you don't have to pay to download the game, so you get to play the game for free. And as you proceed, you can you can pay money to move faster or you get stronger, but you don't have to. So some users pay. Majority of our users don't pay. Some users who want to play faster and better pay for some virtual currency or virtual weapon or buy time. And we are purely mobile. So most of our revenue, gaming revenue, is coming from mobile. And it's social. So social, when we say social, it is about inviting your friend makes difference in the game, or you compete with these friends, or you interact with a friend about your score. Maybe some of you might have played some of these games like Candy Crush. So these premium mobile and social are what we are really good at. And we have launched 1,000 plus freemium games on mobile, and we have 50 million users who have paid for the game, cumulative. And like I said, we have 2 billion annual revenue in virtual goods. So this is how the service looks like in Japan. So we have Android app, iOS app, and smartphone browser, and feature phone browser. And we have, here I say, it says PC browser. So we have partnership with Yahoo. So if you go to Yahoo Japan and see game section of Yahoo Japan, it is run by us, but it's on desktop. And we create our games in-house, and also we publish third-party game developers' games. And we have unified virtual currency with which you can buy these goods. So we are running this ecosystem tied up with this virtual currency and ID. So if you have ID and passport, you have reason to play another game in our platform. Here in the West, and China and Korea, we don't do browser games, so we just do native app. By native app, maybe that's what you are most familiar with. So these apps you download versus browser games. You open up Safari or Chrome on phone and then play. That browser game is still big in Japan, but not here, as you know. So I'm going to talk a bit about DeNA expansion to the West. So I came here after spending 2 years in China in 2008. So when I came here, it's 2008. So the smartphone was not big at all, the mobile gaming or mobile service, mobile internet market in Japan was called Galapagos, meaning that all these specs or tech specs on mobile phones are really unique. So if you create a website back in 2008 in Japan for a Japanese mobile phone, it cannot be seen outside of Japan. So mobile phones are so different that we couldn't just import our service into the US and just run it. So everything was from scratch. So we weren't even sure if the same business model would work in the Western or outside of Japan. So I was just sent by myself. So I was one-man department, overseas department. It had a name of department, but it was just me. And I landed in SFO, and I just rent the office space in San Mateo. And I hired like 20 people in San Mateo. And we've been trying many things to at least become familiar with the market by the time that we can be really confident of making a big investment. So from 2008 to 2010, I was running a small team, trying many things, and like other many startups, most of the things I've done failed, which was fine because I kept learning. And in by 2010, so by 2010, so these 2 years was really we saw and you saw huge changes in mobile internet market. Right? Apple not only launched iPhone but also opened up a platform for entrepreneurs to create apps for everybody, and Google did the same thing. So by 2010, we were confident with the network, business network we had, and the business environment we were seeing in the U.S. So a couple of things. iPhones and Android phones were becoming big in Japan, as well as they were here. So which means we had to start thinking competing with Zynga and other guys in Silicon Valley. So that we realized that we need to make a big move, and we feel like we knew the market well enough to make a big investment. So what you're seeing in this slide is the major acquisition that we've done in each countries and area that we have footprint here. And I was in charge of this Energy Moko acquisition and Atacama Lab acquisition. So Energy Moko was great acquisition because they were one of the top iPhone game developers back then, and they have great management. While we were still a lot in feature phone gaming market, so we wanted to learn the know-how of native smartphone gaming development, and also Western market too. So since the acquisition of Energy Moko, we positioned that office in San Francisco as the headquarters of the business. So the management of Energy Moko kind of took responsibility of the whole Western market. And since we felt that it was challenging to hire a lot of engineers in San Francisco because of the competition, so we acquired a company called Atacama Labs. It is a company in Santiago, in Chile. So I didn't know until I worked on this deal. At Santiago, there are great tech universities, but there were no great gaming companies. So a lot of engineers who wanted to work on games didn't have any other choice than joining Atacama Labs. So we had a really good position. We had a really good position to hire great engineers. So it is still the case. So they just keep kind of providing great engineers for our gaming, game development. So these San Francisco and Santiago are really important offices for us. And we also have a studio in Vancouver, which we set up through another different acquisition. So we have 200 plus here, 220 people here, and 80 people in Vancouver, and 80 people in Santiago, right? Yeah. Oh, so here I wanted to talk a little bit about how that acquisition and the integration after that went, because that's the question I get a lot. It's a Japanese public company buying U.S. Startup. So everybody was saying, hey, so there should be a lot of cultural difference. How it went. So that was 300 million acquisition. The stake was huge, so we couldn't fail. We acquired Energy Moko in 2010, at the end of 2010. We actually ended up spending whole 2011 on integration, which we did not plan. So it did not go smooth, of course. So now, like I said, the Energy Moko San Francisco office is headquarters. So now I have a really great team, and we are expanding. But back in 2011, I was freaking out. So I might have made a huge mistake, spending 300 million. So that came from several reasons. One thing is it's not, many people would say, hey, this might be just West versus Japan thing. But one surprising thing I realized was the DeNA, the way of doing business for DeNA looked more Western to me compared to Energy-Moco. So Energy-Moco, when we acquired it, it was 100 plus people led by founder. So that was really optimized as a startup company. So everything was decided by these founders, group of founders, and you don't have to be too transparent about how business was going. Versus, we were massively profitable, and we had strived to be super entrepreneurial. We had really unique company culture, even in Japan. So it was really wrong to try to see Japanese culture through DeNA. But I realized that more strongly when I worked the integration of the business. The example is that we tend to disclose all failure and the decision-making process to employees to the really detailed level. And if asked questions, I would disclose anything. Versus, the most of the startup company with 100 people can't afford doing that. They need to move really fast. So these people, engineers and game producers, were trained not to step back and ask a lot of questions. So that was actually a big culture gap we had to handle, because every time I have a lot of questions, I just kept asking around questions and try to find data or report. The reporting was something these startup companies tend to skip. They had really well assigned responsibility among the team. That was a big thing. We just tried to honest and transparent. That didn't fit well with employees and founders, but gradually they realized how DeNA had been going through this pivot with this unique company culture. They started to like it, and they started to adopt it. And from us, we started to adapt this Western culture. Another unique thing about DeNA that shocked people here was how we handle people, how we handle HR. So in DeNA, every time we see people start to perform really well. For example, let's say it's a sales department. One salesman start to make half of the revenue. Every time we see it, we pull that person out of the team and put that person in a brand new assignment. We just keep doing that. In that way, teams start to think the way to create a structure to make money instead of relying on one person. So that's why I kept hopping around in different jobs, but that never happens in the US. So we started to say, hey, so this marketing has a bigger team than we need. Why don't we just move that person to game development? And people are like, no way. No one would like to do that because they have a career path in marketing. But gradually, the people here started to like that approach. I love this approach because I never get bored. So those kind of culture gap was big in the first year. So we spent whole year really integrating culture and business procedure, and as a result, we started to launch profitable games in 2012, and then now we are making next big move. And I want to quickly touch on DeNA culture. So this is, if you join DeNA, so this is what you are told as really kind of minimum requirement for the people. This is kind of a big culture gap for the Energy-Moco. So the delight is kind of straightforward, and surface of sphere is a little bit hard to understand. This is as opposed to pyramid shape of the organization. So we see the organization as a surface, sphere, sorry. and you own the surface of that sphere. And if you're a senior, your kind of area get bigger, and if you're junior, your area is small. But you own the surface, so you're facing outside the company and representing the whole group. Whereas, pyramid-shaped organization, you deliver your work to your boss, who deliver that work to executives who represent the whole company. But here we say that everybody represents the company. Be the best I can be straightforward. Transparency, honesty, and speak up. So speak up is a little bit hard to implement. So whenever you say you see something wrong, you have responsibility to speak up, whatever it is. That seems to be kind of, to me, that I thought that this came from kind of Western, culture, because Namba-san, the founder, graduated from Harvard. But that turned out to be kind of a bit hard, difficult culture to implement completely in the Western startup organization. So each stage of startup has optimized culture. So this is optimized for us as culture that wanted to move really quickly in an entrepreneurial way in Japan.
Don, can I interrupt
Sure.
for a second? How are these 5 points used?
People carry them around on cards, or are they in the office, or what
Yes,
happens
so
with them?
this is posted everywhere in the office, globally, and you have booklet. So the purpose is basically, this to be used in day-to-day conversation in the work. Like for example, so if you are kind of having drink with somebody, maybe complaining about your boss, you are supposed to, hey, so you're supposed to speak up to your boss, right? And the transparency and honesty, if we have this, posted everywhere, it's really hard for managers to hide something. I wanted all managers to be super transparent. So we didn't want to create any politics and bureaucracy. So this is all about against bureaucracy and politics. So everybody.
To me, this is real
Traditional Japan.
Yeah,
that you see some organizations that have had this for a long time in Japan, and people take it seriously. I think that's the big difference, is people really look at it as a positive thing. Here, if a company tried to do that, they'd probably, half the employees would laugh at it.
Well, yeah, so I mean, everybody comes to the office for interview. Everybody likes this, but they get surprised when they really see this is not just jargons. It's really demonstrated in the office. And this is not kind of, the goal that you should kind of achieve. This is kind of minimum requirement. So yeah, if you miss one of these, you're considered as kind of, questionable employee. So this culture now, I think, is really well demonstrated in the Western office. I mean, actually everywhere in our global office. And so as a result, we took some detour in acquisition and integration of Energy Moko. Now we are successfully running, these games. So we had multiple games in the top grossing ranking in the US. And now we are known as one of the largest, the game developer in the West. So actually, we have been, so all these successes are mainly from 2012 or early 2013. But we have been silent for a while because starting 2013, we launched a huge initiative where we developed 30 games in parallel. And all these 30 games are coming out in next five months. So please look forward to it. I'm really excited. So we've been making these 30 games, and it's really a big deal for one game company to make 30 games at the same time. So that's how the gaming business went. So I wanted to talk about kind of a long-term strategy, but like I said, making 30 games is a huge deal for us, and we are super heads down, execution mode. and we are trying to be sustainably profitable in 1 quarter or two. And so, I'm happy to come back here to kind of share with you our success in 6 months.
In 6 months.
Yes. And so I wanted to touch quickly about other new services. So like I said, for the whole past 14 years of DeNA history, we kept investing in totally new businesses all the time. One, of course, to make money. Two, to really kind of for us to be super flexible and entrepreneurial. So even though 90% of our revenue is coming from games, if asked by investor, we don't represent ourselves as a game developer. It's not necessarily a good thing for a stock price. That sometimes hurt us, but we wanted to be always kind of entrepreneurial. So we wanted to kind of keep something like Silicon Valley ecosystem within the company. That's how we keep getting great people, not only from Japan, but from some places in Asia and Europe. And we launched last 12 months. I think we launched about more than 10 new services. And 3 of them have been really successful. We killed the majority of them. And I want to quickly talk about these new services. So one, this is called Showroom. This is a real-time streaming live service for artists, for entertainment. And like you can see, so in real time, you can show up as a crowd here, and you can say something to this singer or dancer, and then they can respond to it. And you have to pay money to send flowers and this stuff. It's going well so far. We just launched it in November. And the other thing is Manga Box. So as you might know, so comic books are huge in Japan. If you go to Japan and get on the subway, everybody will be spending time either on comic books or smartphone. Now more and more smartphone. And we are trying to replace this comic magazine with smartphone. So we work with a lot of famous authors and really new authors. So this is exactly the business model that the comic magazine has been doing, and they are, going down in terms of revenue and number of copies that they're selling, and it's doing really well. And it's actually translated real time, so you can check it out, the English version of it. And we have also entered the education market. So most of school-age students, in addition to school, they are either going to other private school to catch up with the study for entrance exam, or they subscribe this educational magazine. And it's a huge market, but it's dominated by one big company. And we are trying to do that on smartphone with the better content, working with Tokyo University with more reasonable price. And it just launched in December. And it's getting really great traction. And other than that, we also launched a chat service. We are working on some confidential medical business. We have some coupon service for grocery stores. We have many other, I can't even catch up with all these new services. And we wanted to do the same thing here in the US as soon as we become sustainably profitable. So that's how DeNA kind of has been, growing, but yet, keep kind of trying new things. I think that basically concludes my presentation. If DeNA sounded interesting to you, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say this, but we are hiring. So please go to dnajob.com. Thank you.
So let me come up and sit by you, and
Sure.
I want to start off asking you a question. So when you in 2000 decided you were going to start, go to work for a company that had 20 people in it, and it's not your own company, you're not one of the first entrepreneurs founding it, right? How did you explain it to your family?
Actually, my parents are a little bit unique, so they really worried when I decided to work for a bank. They
were worried about that.
They knew I would get bored, so they were actually happy hearing that I joined a startup company.
Yeah, okay. And in looking at all of the things that DeNA has been involved with, I think one of the most important parts of the story is how you keep looking at new businesses and new business models for continuing the company's growth. That's something a lot of companies can't do. But I think, to cut to the chase, Japan's got a terrible reputation for lack of entrepreneurship, right?
Yeah.
How is DeNA so different? How does this happen? How do you, why?
Yeah, so that's a great question. There are, I would say, several different answers to it. One of them is, the management team. A lot of them are from either bank or consulting firm. They're really good at looking at market and analyzing it and making right move. But the first move we make was kind of out of necessity. We didn't really want to go bankrupt.
Yeah.
And so we had to make these pivots that were not so entrepreneurial. We just shifted from C2C to B2C. That was kind of straightforward if you wanted to make revenue more stable. But I started to feel good about these pivots.
Yeah.
Especially when we moved to mobile auction. That went really well. Oh, hey, this feels really good. Maybe we should keep looking at new things.
Always keep looking at new things. So as you're looking at new things now, company internal development versus acquisition, how does the company sort of look at both of those as part of a general innovation strategy?
Right, yeah. So we still, I think, have really, we have a tendency of super conservative in terms of these investment. So we've been making these great successful businesses from scratch. But when we started to make over 1 billion in revenue, you can't really keep doing that. It's just making 1 billion business in the US from scratch is impossible. So we knew that, and we knew that was something our investors looking, at us. So that was also kind of out of necessity. We weren't not necessarily confident at our capability of looking at companies and be confident with making this huge investment. So it was really scary.
If you had to go back to Tokyo right now and kind of do the same thing, looking at possible partnerships and so forth, would it be very different than what you're doing here?
I don't know. So if I were in Tokyo,
yeah,
maybe yeah. So I was here in 2008 only because only I and Namba-san spoke some English.
Yeah.
So if I had known the size of the investment, maybe I would have sent better businessman who knows how to buy a company and everything about Silicon Valley.
Okay, let's open the floor to questions. Go ahead.
I have a two-part question. Some people say successful startup companies in Japan have problems globalizing because when they start a company, they only think about being successful in Japan. And so they tailor towards the Japanese market. And then once successful, then they try to globalize, and it makes it difficult. So the first part of the question is, the DeNA experience the same challenge in globalizing? And the second part is, now that you are a global company and you continue to start new businesses, are you doing it the same way, meaning that when you start a new business, are you still only focusing on the Japanese market first and then try to globalize when you become successful?
Yeah, so we definitely faced a challenge when we, started to make investment overseas, and the biggest, I think, challenge we faced was being seen as Japanese domestic company from investors and employees here. They have sort of pre-assumption of what kind of company many of the Japanese company will look like. But like I said, most of the challenge we faced was not really because we were a Japanese company. We were just new to the Silicon Valley, so we had to take a lot of learning curve of adapting, the way to manage people and way to work with other companies. Because we were not really traditional Japanese company in the way that many people see us. But on mobile, I really don't see, so except these challenges, on mobile internet, I don't see a huge difference between Japanese market and the Western market. Many game developers tend to say, hey, this is too Japanese, so you need to change it. But we often fail in that way. And we just launch our service intact in the US. That, often goes better.
So that's a design issue.
Right, design
I
issue.
mean, game design does tend to not be international.
Right.
Different markets tend to have their own different preferences. Another thing is payment systems. It must have been really hard to get used to different ways that people have of paying.
Yeah, so it used to be,
I'm guessing in
right.
Japan, still, most payments are going through the phone company?
It used to be in that way, but now that most of these transactions are happening on native app, either on Google and Apple, so that payment headache is gone, except that you have to pay 30% to Google and Apple.
That's a headache.
Right. And for this game design, yes, so a lot of game developers. So we had a lot of game designers from EA and Zynga. They tend to say, hey, this UI look too Japanese, so you wanted to change it. And we used to believe it, but when you do that, a lot of mistake we made was without understanding deeply on how this compulsion loop and deep game balance work, you tend to make mistakes to change these core game balance. So for us, experience has been that it's better not to make these changes in UI when launching the game.
Okay.
Yeah.
With your new businesses, like when you start a new business, do you look at the entire global market and say how I optimize my business for the global market, or still focusing on the
so we are trying to be global, company, obviously, from a revenue standpoint too, and a little bit less than 50% of our shareholders are already Western investors. So they see us, they are seeing how we do globally. So we are still making a ton of money in Japan. So we need to stay good at that. But at the same time, we want to be really aggressive on West. So we have no choice of really just getting back into Japanese market and stay cozy in Japan market. So all decision making we make are basically, from global perspective.
Okay, good, thanks. Floor's open. Go ahead.
Two questions. First is, why did you decide to release 30 games at one go versus putting them in stages? Isn't that very risky?
Could you say that again? I couldn't quite catch it.
Why did you decide to release 30 games at one go and stay silent for 2 years? The 30 games?
I'm sorry. So why we decided to go with these 30 games?
Yes.
Great. Okay. Yeah.
Second question is, what do you think about connected TV? Are you guys thinking about gaming on connected TVs?
TVs. Okay, great question. So for the first question, so back in 2012, we started to see profitable games. But that game we launched was basically only around the game system that we are super good at. So we basically, in 2012, we made a lot of card battle genre of the games, which turned out to be kind of niche market. So we knew these games monetization mechanism works well. So we decided to expand our portfolio. And we wanted to play the game of big company versus small startup because we have a lot of cash. So we decided, instead of just trying out slowly, instead we decided to make a big investment and launch these 30 games in a really short period of time. We have 5 strategic genres, and each genre we have several games launching one by one, so that we can just keep learning in the earlier game and adapt that to the later games. So that's kind of the strategy we had. Does that answer your first question? And the second question about what we think about TV. Yes, so we keep looking at these different devices. So we don't treat TV as something special. So we also look at these wearable devices. We look at these, iPad and how you call it, tablet. We look at many different devices. But so far, still smartphone and tablet are growing really fast. So we want to prioritize these devices first. Maybe you don't know, there are a lot of Americans who don't have smartphone yet. And that are still growing. So we want to make sure that we win that game. And then it's not too late once these great other devices become big, for us to enter that market.
Thanks. Ian, you had a question.
Yeah, it seems that you have a really unique employment structure, and I'm wondering whether or not your policy for taking members out of a group and putting them into different groups applies between offices in various countries and around the globe, or is it within their own individual office?
Yeah, good question. We started to do that. So we started to move people from, for example, San Francisco studio to Santiago studio. We have a lot of experts from Japan. That's obvious. We have not sent anybody from, we actually did. So we sent some people to Japan from San Francisco, but we started to see it. But the magnitude of us kind of moving people around in San Francisco is much, much less compared to that in Tokyo. I mean, we don't force that, of course. If you're an engineer and you're interested in business side, we always have open door and even encourage that. People start.
So is it like an internal job market and people apply for jobs, or does personnel sort of say, we think you should go here?
It happens in both ways. But we do that only for great performer in certain business. So, if people say, well, I can't do well in this department, so I want to move to a different department, we don't basically do that. I mean, the accepting department don't like to have these people either. So for the great performer, whenever somebody start to stand up, we just pull that person out.
Is that an indication that DeNA kind of has an expectation that people will be in for a long time, lifetime employment kind of expectation?
That's actually a great question. Yeah, maybe that might be the case, but our business moves really fast.
Yeah.
So for us, 2 years is like forever.
A long time. Yeah.
So average tenure might be somewhere around 2 years in Silicon Valley, but that's a lot of time for us and for employees to experience many things.
Okay. Floor is open again.
Hi, I'm Jim Maricondo from ISI Dentsu. I'd just like to return briefly to the topic of globalization. You mentioned that the San Francisco office is considered the world headquarters. I wanted to ask, what is the official language of the company? Because I think really to be a global company, at some point you need to embrace English. I know some Japanese companies, like Mikitani and Rakuten, have tried to make English the official language to various reactions from the Japanese business community, but without doing that, I think it does become a limiting factor trying to expand overseas. And just one anecdote from my own personal experience. I spent some time at France Telecom in their Orange R&D lab in Tokyo, and they act even French. You think they're very proud of their language, but they had selected English as the official language of France Telecom, which used to be a part of the government. But really, I think it's to ensure the success of their company. That's the best decision for them to make. Of course, it doesn't mean that every meeting is in English, but I thought it was a good decision.
Right, yeah. So we are not quite there yet. So DeNA, so San Francisco is, by the way, the Western headquarters. So still the global headquarters is in Tokyo. So like I said, back in 2005 or 6, I'm the only employee who spoke okay English, not perfect. But now most of people speak some English. Many of them are really good. CEO, Isao Moriyasu learned English from zero to be really good English speaker now. So we are making effort. We talked about probably making kind of official language in English, but we know that it wouldn't work in day 2. So we wanted to wait until our organization get ready for it.
Worldwide, about how many non-Japanese people are in the company?
We have
percentage.
Non-Japanese. I think it's more than 30% or 40%.
Wow.
Yeah, because the headquarters, so 2,100 employees are all consolidated, and I know that the headquarters has 1,000, and we have a lot of subsidiaries in Japan. But here we have 380 in America, and we have around 200 in China, and we have, I think, around that in Vietnam too. So maybe more than 30%.
Go ahead.
You've done 4 acquisitions. What was the people attrition rate after a year? The acquisitions, because you said you had different interesting cultures, so some people adapt and some people don't, so I'm just curious.
Yeah. So in energy local, the attrition rate, the average tenure is a little bit less than 2 years, which we thought was a little bit longer than average startup companies. I heard that the Google and Amazon has much shorter average tenure.
So what percent?
So tenure, the average tenure is a little bit less than 2 years. Yeah. Which is surprisingly, short for Japan startup, but it's actually longer than many of startups.
Go ahead.
Yeah. What is your forward-looking view on the social mobile gaming landscape? You talked about, the organic moves you made, the M&A moves you made. How do you think that's going to play out going forward?
Great question. So the mobile social gaming market, Japan, that of Japan is said to be around 7 billion, like last year, and here it's said to be somewhere between like 5 to 6 billion for the West. Some people say it won't grow as much as it did in Japan because in the US especially, people have more than 2 TVs. So you don't have to worry about kind of occupying a TV for games. But my view of this is from kind of our experience in Japan. So these types of market basically should be built by the contents. So if you would keep making crappy games, maybe the market will go down. But if you make great games, that's how you make market. So we have access to a lot of analysts report about how investors see market. But we don't spend a lot of time on it. I mean, some analysts says it will grow a lot. Some analysts says that maybe it will stay around like a 7-8 billion. But we know that as contents developer are the one who lead the market. We don't make decision based on these analysis. So you would not start play games on iPad because you feel like doing so, but you feel like playing some specific great contents, right? So that's how we see it.
Yeah. So, Dai, I got to take the opportunity and ask, from the game industry perspective, how has DeNA had to respond to all the questions about data privacy and information and this kind of thing?
Yeah, so actually that was a huge topic in 2012. So that topic actually had, we suffered from kind of bad brand image of, hey, these privacy issues, plus, the kids are paying a lot of money on games, addicted.
Yeah.
But, we have been really doing kind of best thing for these communities. So we invited a lot of high school students to, or even middle school students to the company. We try to communicate as much as possible. So we actually got hurt by them, listening to people saying that, hey, DeNA is kind of taking advantage of this, not doing good job in the privacy and these things. We have been really sincere. And we actually have a committee headed by CEO just to take care of these privacy issues and these minority age people issues.
Okay. Go ahead.
You mentioned you're going to release some games in 6 months, but I don't think I catch very clearly about DeNA's development strategy here in the US market. So what's your targeting customers? What's your development strategy?
Yes. So we have, I can't talk too much in the details of this for obvious reasons.
Strategic questions.
But we have, like I said, 5 different genres, what we think are really good opportunity for us. And we launch several games per these different genres. And each of these genres and the game system are strategically picked up and designed. You will see. I mean, I can't say, hey, Kabami is in this way, so I wanted to go this, path. That's not something I'm allowed to disclose at this point. But I can tell you that these, 20 to 30 games are coming out really soon in the strategic genres.
And is that going to be a global launch?
It will be a Western launch. These
Western
30 games
launch.
I talked about was for West.
Okay.
And Japan market has its own different portfolio.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to get back to the point about growth. What was the hardest part about sustaining growth where, the number of people in the office doubles every time you come back from a trip?
So hardest part is, when you become really successful, right? So by growing, you just keep adding a lot of restrictions to your business.
Yeah.
Because you want to prioritize, the most lucrative businesses. That makes it harder and harder for us to stay entrepreneurial. And so that's one thing. Another thing is, if you do something really successful, you don't react fast enough to somebody else's success. We were looking at these Korean companies. There's a Line and KakaoTalk. They are doing really well. We didn't react fast enough to these things because we thought that we have really good platform of mobile game. And that was kind of a huge regret for us. And if we didn't have mobile game service, we would definitely look deeper into why these Korean companies made a lot of money out of these businesses. Yeah.
But when I look around, DeNA is like one of the 2 or 3 companies in the last 20 years in Japan that's really had this kind of a growth rate.
Right.
Right. And most startup companies in Japan kind of don't. What kind of advice would you give to them? Why do you think they're not growing more?
We just actually changed businesses, right? So we.
Yeah. So you were hungry for growth. That's one thing.
You are hungry for growth, and maybe the first kind of 3 or 4 years when we have been number 2 or number 3, and trying to kind of make the service that we can call as number 1 service in the market. That spirit, I think, still continues. So every time we make something great, we wanted to do more and more. And we tend to have like long-term goal, like 3 to 5 years, and set a really high goal of achieving certain number of revenue. And we've been achieving these goals surprisingly. So we just kept feeling that we could do that.
Since you joined in 2000, how do you think Japan has changed? Do you think that it's more accepting of entrepreneurs in general
I definitely
now?
think so. I definitely think so. Before DeNA, I was working for a bank. And my job was, part of my job was to make sure that I get the personal guarantee of the loan from these founders.
Yes.
That was part of there's a big part of this, the culture that is making entrepreneurs to take risk. But now I see a lot of people who I know, starting venture fund and startups, and some of them started to come here to start up companies too. So I'm glad to see those changes.
Okay. I think that's good. Go ahead, Devin. You first.
From what you describe your company, to me, sounds very un-Japanese style, especially the management. Open door type of a thing. Usually in the Japanese companies, only the boss talking, the rest of us quietly. So, and many college graduates always go to the big industry. Now, are you collecting all those exceptional weirdo graduates, or is most the young people would like to go to your company instead of Mitsubishi?
Now, actually, DeNA is one of the top destinations for these top students. But before we built that brand, we used to hire, someone who cannot fit in a normal organization. So we do have a lot of weird people. We still do. But as we got famous, we started to see a lot of kind of normal, book smart people in a good way, but less weird people that I miss.
I was about to say, are the normal people dangerous for this entrepreneurial atmosphere?
Yeah, I mean, they are smart, smart enough to adapt whatever culture we have. But we do. We have a kind of brand to hire top-notch people in Japan. That, in some part, might have changed the DeNA culture a little bit, but not in that bad way. But back in 2004, 2005, we had a lot of people who I thought would never be successful in these big companies. They don't like to listen to your boss, and they say whatever they want to say. Yeah.
Jingman, last question.
Yes, I know Gree is also a very famous Japanese mobile social gaming company. So what's the biggest difference between DeNA and Gree, and what's the strong point? What's DeNA's strong point compared to Gree?
DeNA is struggling.
Strong point compared to Gree.
Okay. Yeah, so they're great people. They're a collection of smart people too. They are more focused on games. So they represent themselves of mobile social gaming company. That's how they hire people. We do a lot more things other than games, which is generally not necessarily a good thing. But we our business portfolio is much wider than Gree. We on the social gaming, I can say we are kind of head-to-head competition in Japan and here in the West. But maybe we might be hiring a little bit different kind of people who want to do not just games but many other things, which I could say is a strong point. It could be kind of weak point too for investors. We are a little bit hard to evaluate from one kind of metric as a game company because we do a lot of things differently. So that I would say both of kind of good thing and weak point.
But the interesting thing about innovation is that often you see things coming up between two different areas. And so I think the diverse approach is very interesting. Let's call an end to the formal session. We've got some refreshments outside. We hope you'll stay around and meet Dai and talk with each other for a while. Thanks for coming. Dai, thanks very much for a great talk.